Hello everyone, this is Magenta Pixie speaking, and I just thought I would make a video and present to you some of the conversations that I've been having on social media, predominantly with my social media group on Telegram. Some people will ask questions and I go ahead and respond to those questions and then post them up on the Telegram channel, and then take some of those posts and post them on other social media sites as well. I'm on MeWe, Gab, Minds and Instagram. But for those who aren't on social media, I would like to go through some of these posts for a video. And I'm bringing the 9 forward 2 or 3 times within this presentation, just so that they can clarify further on some of these conversations that I've been having. So we're looking here at questions that are in the political field, specific to the fictional village. So be aware that everything we discuss here is fiction. All my social media groups, especially Telegram, are to discuss the fictional novel that I'm writing with the help of the members of the group. So let's begin. Okay, first question. Magenta. On a human level, if they are human at all, then I believe Ruth Killed and Rocky Fellow are at the highest level. Is this correct? After that, who knows? So these are fictional characters, Ruth Killed and Rocky Fellow. Are they at the highest level? My reply to this is, regarding the novel, there are others above these fictional characters. So they are not at the highest level. Those that are above are unknown by the people, never seen, names never heard of. The characters you mention are the ones that show themselves to the world, but they are not the dark magicians at the top of this pyramidical structure in the village. Next question. Magenta, I remember you writing that Mr. Squishy, he's no puppet minion, but he's high up in the controller's hierarchy. Therefore, maybe he will try to control or prevent the determined outcome of the fall of the dark structures. So Mr. Squishy is a reasonably newish character in the novel, having just been crowned top banana for the UK domain. So I remember you writing that Mr. Squishy is no puppet minion and high up in the controller's hierarchy. So here is my reply. No, you have misunderstood. Mr. Squishy is a minion. He is not high up in the structure. He doesn't even know about the full Dark Order in the novel. The 2 people I mentioned as being higher up in that structure are Hunter Jeremiah and Mert Heinecack. These are both individuals in the UK domain. Yet these people are still minions. They just know more than the others, and they are part of the dark structure, especially Hunter Jeremiah, who is in the village in a political position that deals with the financial briefcase. So Mr. Squishy, no, not at all. He is not high up in this structure. So I'm turning over to the 9 here to clarify a little bit further on these characters in the village, in the novel, that are specific to the UK domain. And this is what the 9 said. At this point in your reality, it matters not regarding the individual, but the group they represent, either the negative structure or the positive structure. Those unaware of the play-out with either, be they unwittingly working for the negative for financial gain, fame or power, or be they under orders due to bribery taking place, or be it that they believe the negative structure to be positive. The one you call Mr. Squishy within your infamous and most famous novel within the astral fields is a representative of the negative structure regardless of his own matrix fields, which ultimately hold positive frequency. Therefore, this one you speak of, Mr. Squishy, is under hijack. The predecessor, you call the Mr. Boobuzz, was easier to hijack, for his fields were mixed, leaning towards the negative, except in the case of his own immediate family, in which case there was genuine positive, or is genuine positive, frequency there. The one that was short-lived in top banana position, the one you refer to as the Mrs. Lizzie Teruse, was ultimately of positive frequency, yet also under hijack, therefore seemingly representing the negative structure. However, her reluctance and thus refusal to comply with orders allowed more positive, higher dimensional plasma energy to flow through her, as in that one respect she held integrity. The 9, the White Wing Collective Consciousness of 9. So what they're saying here is the immediate predecessor to Mr. Squishy, Mrs. Lizzie Teruse, was given some kind of order from the dark structure, and she was reluctant to go along with this order, and finally, after deliberation, she refused to go along with this order. And that refusal allowed that positive energy to flow and move her into that positive polarization more, even though she's representing the negative structure due to hijack. Now, the 9 have spoken to me since about the current top banana that has only just stepped into the top banana position, Mr. Squishy, who, whether or not Mr. Squishy has been given the same order that Lizzie Teruse was given, I don't know, but what I am shown is Mr. Squishy is far more likely to comply. When an individual is hijacked by the dark structure, they don't often not comply. If there's enough negativity in their own fields that match that negative frequency coming from the dark structure, they'll find it within them to be able to carry out these negative moves and actions. So he's more likely to carry this out, and she refused. I don't know what this is. The only other way that the dark structure can actually hijack an individual to carry out a negative order is to make them believe it's actually a positive action and that it will benefit people. But it doesn't appear that has been the case in this situation, because Lizzie Teruse began to have reluctance, realizing that this wasn't in the people's best interests, or in the party's best interests, or in the village's best interest, the best interest of the overall Fae, and refused. So that's all the 9 have told me on this subject, and that's their comment regarding that one particular question or subject. Okay, next question. Or rather, it's a statement, actually. Magenta, in your novel, if you see his face and know his name, he is nowhere near the top of the control structure. He's taking orders from above. Anyone of the cabal-rabble in the public sphere is a puppet, plain and simple. The top cabal members would not be so public as to appear on the podium and have people know who they are and their past business dealings. Even people like Georgianne Sarusa and Clues Shawaba are not the top cabal members. My reply, absolutely correct. You have been reading the novel very well. Okay, next question. Or potentially this is a statement, actually. Magenta, I have to be more mindful when I read the novel. I thought all minions knew about the dark structure, So this is a surprise for me to find out that Mr. Squishy doesn't know about it. Also, to find out that Mert Heineckak is higher than Mr. Squishy. Thank you, Magenta, for this explanation. My reply, Mr. Squishy knows some of it, not all of it. Need to know basis, pyramidical structure. So what I'm meaning here is the minions will only be told what they need to know in order to carry out the orders that they're being given. And as I've said, some of those orders will be presented as if they're a positive thing. And yet, depending on how much negativity, how much polarization of negativity there is, it's not full polarization, obviously, because these individuals haven't fully polarized. Mr. Squishy hasn't fully polarized. But whatever negative energy there is there can be capitalized upon. And so Mr. Squishy knows some of this structure, is aware that there's a structure, but doesn't know all of it, as in, well, what's its overall goal? No, Mr. Squishy isn't privy to that level, but Mr. Squishy knows some of it. Yes, Mert Heineckak is higher up in the structure than Mr. Squishy. And as I've said, Hunter Jeremiah is higher, yet still he's the one holding the financial briefcase. And that's the most powerful position on the board. That's the most powerful chess piece on the UK board here in this particular arena. So that's where the ultimate control is coming in through. And that is via that person, the one holding the financial briefcase. And there is a high level of negative polarization there. There's no hijack needed other than the fact that the entire structure is hijacked, if you will. Other than that in itself, from a higher perspective, there's no hijack needed from the dark structure's point of view because he's one of them and is already highly polarized. And he is the highest up in that system, in that dark structure that's moved into the UK domain in this particular field so far that I have seen in recent years. So not a good thing to have him in that position. But as the Nine said, doesn't matter about the individual, it's the structure that they represent. That's the issue. Okay, next question. Magenta, in the novel, are they humans, the dark magicians? If so, are they immortal? Are they still in the village? Are they still alive in the village? The dark magicians that are humans, are they humans? And my reply is, they are both human, vampire, because we are speaking about a fictional novel here, so we have vampires as well as fairies, pixies and elves in this fantasy fiction story. So they're both human, vampire and non-human. So we're looking at more of an extraterrestrial presentation when it comes to the dark structure. But when the Nine mention dark magicians, they are speaking of the human ones, the human vampire beings who are in communication or contact in some way with the non-human or the extraterrestrial. So they're speaking of the human ones when they mention dark magicians. Are they immortal? Well, I know in lots of stories, vampires are often immortal, aren't they? In this particular novel, no, they're not immortal. But the Nine have said they are still looking for the Philosopher's Stone on that one. I would assume that means they are still trying to find immortality. But that has eluded them at this point. Are they long-lived? And the answer to that is very much so. So they might not be immortal, but they do live a long, long time. And this is where they're different to the average human. But this ability is fading. So the ability to live long lives is fading. Are they still in the village? Alive in the village, as in on the surface of the village? I presume that's what you mean by your question. So the reply to that is they are either deep down underground, They go down the well in the village, which is the entrance to the vampire lair, or they're off planet. So the answer to, are they in the village, as in the surface, walking around in the village? No, they're deep down underground, or they're off planet. They do not exist walking around on the surface of the planetary village. That's not where they are. They are off planet or deep underground. So the 9 have commented on this to clarify a little bit. So this is what they said. We have spoken before of the dark magicians. You ask us if they are human, and indeed they are so. However, they would not appear that way to you, for they hold different evolutionary codes within their DNA structure, and this is reflected within their skeletal structure, as in they would appear much taller than you, and indeed their lifespan is much longer than yours. Yet other than these 2 major differences, they are indeed human. And that's from the 9. So, okay, next question. Magenta, is there anyone in the UK domain in the novel with a truly good heart, capable of being top banana, with the villagers' best interests at heart? Great question. My reply is yes. As I have said many times before, only one that I know of, and that is Nigella Farraggio. A few more questions on Nigella. Magenta, I've seen video footage of Nigella Farraggio with the ones that love and enjoy chasing wild beings across fields and through the woods until there is nowhere to go or no energy to carry them further, and then they are torn apart. How can he therefore be good and yet cozy up with these privileged players? Great question. My reply: in the same way Mr. Tea Tree is pictured with them and Brandy Russell giving Clues Shawaba a hug and a kiss. There's a photograph going around of Brandy Russell giving Clues Shawaba a hug and a kiss. Because of that, people think Brandy Russell is in on it. He's absolutely not. This means nothing. You have to look deeper than a photo or a video. Only energy fields tell the real story. Now, talking about Nigella Farraggio, if you mean, has he actually participated in the act you mention? I presume you're discussing Foxy Flurries and the racing? Well, sadly, that is ignorance. And these people I mention are not omnipresent, enlightened gurus. But they are good in the sense that they want the best for humanity, and left alone without infiltration, they're capable of carrying that through, as in positively polarized. The positive outweighs the negative by far in this person. Now, I have no idea if he's taken part in such an activity or not. I'm leaning towards no, he hasn't, and that he was just with the people that have. However, we are not yet at the stage where we have fifth dimensionally aware souls in politics. So I would hope he didn't take part in a Foxy Flurry, but I don't know for sure on that. I'm leaning towards the fact that he didn't. Okay, next comment on the same vein. You are correct, Magenta. Nigella Farraggio was not on a horse. I also do realise that people are not gurus, etc. But as someone who feels very strongly for our wild beings, I struggle to see all the shades of grey, and I will see this as an opportunity to look deeper. Thank you for your reply. And I then commented and said, you and I would also expect every genuine member of this group, so every genuine member reading this comment on social media and everyone out there listening to this comment would feel the same way about the wild beings, the beloved animals. We would feel the same way. However, a lamb cannot clear out a snake pit if he surrounds himself with only other lambs. He has to get in there and move with the snakes in order to make changes in the snake pit, like Mr. Tea Tree. That's how he did it, had to move in those circles. Mr. Tea Tree was more familiar with that world being business than perhaps Nigella Farraggio is. And the two Fae, two gnomes, Nigella Farraggio and Mr. Tea Tree, are different. But the similarity is the open heart and the positive polarization and the goal, which is to make this village a far better village than it currently is, and for people to thrive and be happy, for things to be done in alignment, in the right way, towards a positive outcome. Nigella Farraggio and Mr. Tea Tree absolutely 100% have this. That's guaranteed. This isn't just a psychic opinion. It is the truth. And anyone who can see that will know this to be correct. Okay, next comment, stroke question. Magenta, I agree with you about Nigella Farraggio. Long before Kooky started, I felt everything he said made so much sense. However, I do get a sense of an oversized ego from him at times, and it's the same with Mr. Tea Tree. Is this just their third-dimensional imperfections? And do we need to integrate the dark and the light in order to see the full picture? Great comment, actually. So my reply is, what you see here as ego is defensiveness. It's not their natural character either, but a stance one is often pushed into taking when one is attacked relentlessly. That goes for both of them, Nigella Farraggio and Mr. Tea Tree. The egos are with the overlords. The egos are not with positively polarized individuals. They have an ego aspect, which is the 3D aspect, the human aspect, but to be egotistical and to operate from that, that's a service to self, overlord trait, not a service to others trait, which is based on service and compassion. Magenta, surely you don't have to be an aware fifth-dimensional soul in order to know what pain and suffering you are causing. My reply to this is, no, you don't, although you wouldn't be causing pain and suffering if you were fifth-dimensional. I'm not sure in what context you mean your post to be in or its relevance. If you are referring to Nigella Farraggio mixing with the foxy people, then this is a means to an end. And also, some people do not understand the value of animals. They do not know how to honor the spirit of an animal. And you would need to be fifth dimensional to truly understand this. Some people may turn a blind eye, realizing there's nothing they can do about it yet. And they have to know how to prioritize which battles to fight. Now, that's not an excuse, and it is a flaw. But as I have previously said, these people are not perfect and they do have flaws. The point is, they're not Cabal. They're not overlords. They're not minions to the overlords, as the majority in this structure are. They're not hijackable because they have a higher amount of positive polarization within them, so much so that they can't be hijacked. Just like a starseed holding that much light cannot be manipulated into doing something they don't want to do. There still has to be a level of third-dimensional energy there, as in genuine darkness and greed or fear of lack. Both of those very different negative frequencies make that individual hijackable. So it's positive polarization and integrity to light, to what is right, what is good, to godly action, if you will, makes you unhijackable because you can recognize that which is out of alignment. So talking about Mr. Tea Tree and Nigella Farraggio, they both have that. And you need to have that in order to be a real, genuine top banana. That doesn't mean you're going to have no flaws, and potentially you might mix with foxy people. As I said, means to an end, and they need to get in there and be top banana first before they can make changes to the foxy world. Those things, sadly, would be less of a priority. To people like us, it's a #1 priority. It's really high on the agenda. But we're not in that field, so we can work on that spiritually. But we can't actually do something about it politically and legally within the fictional novel because we are not in the top banana position. So looking for perfection inside these positively polarized individuals that could genuinely act as top banana isn't going to be found, because this is the very beginning of moving away from a dark structure and moving into having individuals that can hold that light. What you are looking at comes way down the line. And I know that that is frustrating for people. They want it now. We are not going to have an entire political swap over in the space of a few weeks, months, or even years from a dark structure to a purely enlightened one. That takes time. Do we get there in the end? 100% yes. But it's not yet. It's not yet. Okay, comment here. This is quite funny. My husband would have a... I don't know if I should say that. Okay, I'll just read it as it is. Oh God, my husband would have a coronary if this happened, meaning Nigella Farraggio becoming top banana. I will not repeat what he calls him here, but I'm open-minded, smiley face. So yeah, funny. And I mean, I know, making a joke about having a coronary isn't necessarily too funny at the moment, given the fact that that's actually happening so much. But this person is meaning that their husband would be, completely freaking out if Nigella Farraggio became the top banana. And my reply to this was, I am sure a great many share his sentiments, and even more so with Mr. Tea Tree. Shockwaves coming when these timelines manifest. And manifest they will. And I'm not saying it's definitely going to be Nigella Farraggio's top banana in the UK domain, and it's am I saying it's definitely going to be Mr. Tea Tree? Pretty much. I mean, I'm not saying that it will be the top banana in the way it was before, because there's going to be changes across the world, and it will start in the US domain. There'll be changes across the village. But yes, if you are looking at Mr. Tea Tree returning and Nigella Farraggio stepping up, they are almost guaranteed as timelines. How that manifests might not be exactly what you're thinking, because the structure they move into won't be the same as it is now, and them moving into the structure isn't necessarily what changes it. The fact that they are there in the first place and have been in the structure already, that was what changed it. The structure began to change years ago just by these individuals being in place, most especially Mr. Tea Tree becoming top banana in 2016. That made massive ripples of change across the globe, as I've spoken about so many times before. So this question is along those same lines. Magenta, for those people who feel such strong hatred for Tea Tree and Nigella, how will they ever accept them as top banana? Will it be just like now, with all the Tea Tree fans refusing to accept Mr. Bebop as top banana? But they can't actually prove he's not the top banana, so he's still there as top banana. Will it be the same, just like a role reversal of the same situation? Really, really great question. And my reply is, it depends how the play out occurs. If it were right now, if Mr. Tea Tree and Nigella Farraggio stepped up as top banana in these two domains right now, it would be much, much, much worse when it comes to acceptance. The reaction to this and the acceptance of it would be really, really bad, as those who are asleep are less able to moderate emotional reaction and patience. Now, if this happens after a false awakening leading into a real awakening, then this will be welcomed and celebrated. So we've got two extremely different ends of the spectrum here. And I wrote within this post, the most probable play out is somewhere between the two. Next post was Magenta. I can't quite picture some of my tea tree hating friends welcoming his return in any capacity, especially as top banana. It would be hilarious to witness, to be honest. And I replied with, I think we all sneakily, well, I don't say we all, I think we all who see the truth, sneakily look forward to this manifesting. Lol. But we must be good and remain within pure alignment to all that is meant to be. So what I'm saying here is we can't hope that Mr. Tea Tree returns as top banana just to find the hilarity in witnessing the shock and the horror from those who hate him. However, those of us who have been through this journey and witnessed the atrocities done to Mr. Tea Tree and what that has meant will sneakily, kind of quite like that, because what we went through as witnesses to this, as supporters, and may I even say as individuals who loved this gnome, Mr. Tea Tree, loved him, we had to witness bullying and the worst possible atrocities done to him. So we would sneakily look forward to this manifesting. However, we must be good and remain within pure alignment to all that's meant to be, because it isn't about the individual. It isn't about us being vindicated or us seeing other people upset. But I did add, this would indeed be hilarious. Okay, so on the subject of Nigella Farraggio, the 9 did comment briefly, so I'm going to read to you what the 9 said about Nigella. Indeed, our conduit is correct. This one you speak of is entirely independent and standing within positive polarization, suspicious of any attempted hijack, and indeed on the lookout for such. He would not be immune to hijack, but due to his fields being positively polarized, he would indeed represent the positive structure and is in your current now time the only potential individual within the UK domain with the ability to do so as leader until such time as others step forward, as indeed they shall. So this is coming from the 9. This is what the 9 is saying. He is the only one capable at this point, given the position he's in and where he is and what he knows. He's the only one for now until others step forward. So there are others. There are others, but they are not able to step into this position now. And, it would be a huge change, or something massive would have to happen for Nigella Farraggio to be that. But he has a line to it. And because of that, he will be seen as a threat by the dark structure. Not as much as Mr. Tea Tree, but in the UK domain, which is a much, much, much smaller domain than the US domain, it's a similar parallel. Okay, so the next question. Magenta, is it true that Mr. Squishy put money into the opening of the Mirana nightclub in the novel? Important to look at the word Mirana. It's spelt M-I-R-A-N-A. Did Mr. Squishy put money into this Mirana nightclub in the novel? The answer to this is, or my reply, it seems this is the case, yes. Minions do these sorts of things. So, if anyone is believing Mr. Squishy to be someone who is going to change things in a good way, which it certainly might appear to be that in the beginning, that's the false awakening, But anyone who genuinely feels that he's, oh, great, we've finally got a really good top banana in the village, have a look at the Marana nightclub. Would someone of genuine positive energy put finances into a Marana nightclub in this fictional village? Have a look at that. Okay, next question. Magenta, what do you think of Jeremiah Corabino? You could also pronounce that as Jeremiah Corbinio. Okay? My reply, certainly not the worst, but he did become a bit of a puppet at times. Better than most, potentially, especially if he starts listening to his brother. Magenta, is Jeremiah Corbino's brother controlled opposition in your novel? No, he is genuine, is my reply. He's not controlled opposition. Magenta, is the placement of Mr. Squishy in the UK domain in the village part of the false awakening? I've seen a lot of people say how good this is for the UK domain and how he's going to turn things around. It's true, people do believe that. They do believe that because it's been set up that way. So you've had one, oh dear, he went rogue, he's the baddie, he made a right mess. In comes another one, she's going to sort things out. Oh dear, she made a bit of a mess too, she made a bit of a mistake as well. Finally, when we're in all this trouble and all this mess, finally along comes the one that's going to do the job. And that's the false awakening. Because it's out with the old and in with the new, out with the bad and in with the good. That's the false awakening, because it's all the same structure. So my reply to this is false awakening 100%. Magenta, I saw a report saying Mr. Boobuzz may team up with Nigella Farraggio. If this happened, what would this be? False awakening or real? So Mr. Boobuzz being the top banana that was in the UK domain, and you know, he was around for quite a while. He's also known as Mr. Barizio. A report saying Mr. Boobuzz may team up with Nigella Farraggio. If this happened, what would it be? False awakening or real? My reply, both. Boobuzz acting on orders to keep an eye on and to keep in check and to keep restricted Nigella Farraggio, without Nigella realising fully that that was the case, but having suspicions, as he would. So Nigella Farraggio is genuine. So that makes the situation the real Great Awakening. If he's in it, it has to be the real Great Awakening because he's genuinely positively polarised. But if Mr. Boobuzz is on the case, and in that structure or party, let's say there's a new party, a new group, and they're both in it, well, it would be a false awakening because Mr. Boobuzz is there. The two would be presenting together, wrapped up as one, and the 9 have said the false awakening and the real true awakening will be intertwined together and presented as one thing. So if Mr. Boobuzz were to team up with Nigella Farraggio, it would be both. Okay. Magenta, wouldn't the overlords take the pieces off the chessboard if they were in the way? Great question, as this is something they have done for a great many years, and this is the way that they would deal with things. Here's my reply. If they are massively in the public eye, it would cause too much of a backfire, especially in this political structure in the fictional village. Also, there are rules they must stick to. So the answer is yes, possibly they would take the pieces off the chessboard. Yes, possibly. But also no, they wouldn't. It depends who it is. Who is the chess piece? What chess piece is it? How important is it for this chess piece to be on the board? Because sometimes attempting to utilise the chess piece for their own ends brings greater reward for the dark structure than actual removal of the chess piece. Okay, next question. Magenta, you say rules. What rules? What rules are you talking about? I have heard it explained that the overlords have to tell us all about the game they're playing, and in that way it was inferred that the participants wanted to play, thus permission was granted as they gave their permission. Perhaps not directly, but by clues in pictures and certain words, notations, but in plain view, but also quite cryptic. Is this an acknowledgement of an even higher game marker? So really, really, really great questions here. And my reply on the group was rules for service to self, polarization, and dark magic, as in timeline manifestation. So rules are needed for this dark magic, this timeline manifestation to work. Rules must be followed or the timeline manifestation won't work. Following universal laws within a service to self stream rather than a service to others stream. Yes, this has been discussed actually before. This particular subject has been discussed in videos and books, transmissions from the Nine. And it's just too deep and complex an answer for here, but it is a great question. However, the Nine do comment on this. I will go through some more questions before I get to the Nine's response regarding these rules, because that is a good question, and the Nine have clarified a bit further. So next question, Magenta. I just can't see this happening. Boo Buzz and Nigella aligning themselves together. Surely Nigella Farraggio, Nigella Farraggio, and she's written Nigella Farraggio. That's good. That's a good one. Surely he would discredit himself if he aligned with Boo Buzz. Okay, and my reply is Nigella Farraggio, or Farraggio, is the only truly genuine one in that world, and he has publicly stated already to the village that he cannot do this alone. If he gathers momentum, then the overlords will attempt to place an in-disguise minion in there somewhere around him. And it may or may not be Barizio, Boo Buzz. There is one other who, whilst not always in alignment with truth and cannot always see dark from light, she's also not Cabal. And she could potentially become part of a new team, although she could also be hijackable a little bit. But she's not Cabal. So she may be a good part of the team. This is in the UK domain, and her name is Anne with the Comb. Anne with the Comb. Comment, Magenta, oh geez, I see I've mistaken Boo Buzz for Barizio. I can't keep them straight, it must be the accent. And my reply, don't worry, Boo Buzz and Barizio are the same person. They like to change their names sometimes so they can pretend to be a clone of themselves. Okay, we do have some humour on our forums between us, and that's one little humour comment. So yes, Mr. Boo Buzz is Mr. Barizio. He's got two names and they're interchangeable in the village. Magenta, I began to have a few more positive thoughts about Anne with the Comb last year. Could you please tell me what your thoughts are about Jake R. Moggy, please? Okay, so this is another MP in the UK domain. I'd never heard of Jake R. Moggy, so I googled Jake R. Moggy and just got loads of gorgeous pictures of beautiful cats. So I replied and said, I've just got loads of pics of beautiful cats. I'll try and have a look for Jake R. Moggy again. But I did remember another good one. Hijackable, yes, if the suggestion or protocol or event was presented as something good, but this person is getting less and less hijackable as time goes on, and that's the gnome, also in the UK domain, who lives in the forest, Swaney Desmondio. Yeah, he's another potentially good one. So there are, you know, a few of these people who sit on the benches right at the back of the town hall that are not Cabal. And I am speaking here specifically regarding the UK domain, but this is the case in all domains. In all domains, there are individuals within this structure that are not Cabal. So I carried on to say, okay, I found Mr. Moggy. Yeah, he's okay. Been very old school, like Swaney Desmondio, but he's not Cabal. And these non-Cabal MPs have had a bit of a rude awakening over the last 2 years, as they are actually in the thick of the takeover. Faced with the choice, do they go along with this or stand against it? So this is a choice that they are having presented to them as being part of that structure, but they sit on the benches in the back of the town hall. Mr. Squishy will bring hope, new hope, to these people who sit on the benches in the back. So those people within the structure are supporting Mr. Squishy. Obviously not all of them, but a lot of them are, and believing him to be the one to bring new hope, just like the people. They are, misled, just like the people. They are being presented with the false awakening, just like the Fae in the village, until the next thing. So there will be another thing, and people will have their eyes opened about Mr. Squishy. How long will that take? Not sure. I would imagine it would be longer than Mrs. Lizzie Trasurio. Okay, Magenta, I asked you previously what you think of Davidio pair of curtains. I think he's awake to a large degree, and he seems to have a good heart. I hadn't heard of Davidio pair of curtains, but I managed to find him. And I replied and said, if you mean the leader of a small party in the UK domain, yes, he is not Cabal as well. He's not Cabal. Really nice to know that they're out there. And I then commented to say that I will mention I'm personally aware of 2 fully awake, non-juiced and star-seeded women in the political field. Not high up, but they are both garnering lots of support. One is in the UK, and I have met her in person, and the other is in the United States, and I've met her via email. And I am aware of both of them, and I know that they exist because I have spoken to them, especially one that I've met in person. So they are out there, and these 2 are not just positively polarized individuals that can't be hijacked. They're starseeds. They're as aware as any other starseed, and they've decided to go into this field. So this is what will happen. This is the calling. More and more will step up and go into this field, and they're in training for this right now. We're going to see this, but we have to go through this sort of 2023 showdown regarding juice and choice points and all those things first, but things are all kind of occurring at the same time. So I then commented to say more will step forward. Okay, so I'm now going to bring forward the 9, who clarified a little bit further regarding these rules, and I will just read this question again. Magenta, you say rules. Whose rules? What rules? I've heard it explained that the overlords had to tell all about the game. In that way, it's inferred that the participants wanted to play. Thus, permission is granted. Perhaps not directly, but by clues in pictures, certain words and notations in plain view, but quite cryptic. Is this an acknowledgement of an even higher game marker? I replied, rules for service to self-polarization and dark magic, as in timeline manifestation, to work, following universal laws within a service to self stream. So that was my reply, and this is what the 9 have said about this. Really great question. Indeed, we have mentioned such before. The dark manifestations cannot work at the global scale intended without free will of the people. Therefore, manipulations are taken to the uppermost point and stand on the border between manipulation and force, leaning slightly more into the field of manipulation. Therefore, when the choice is made by the individual, regardless of the pressure they were under and the level of coercion tactics employed, they will energetically be within the free will field enough for the dark magicians to present to the inverted structure intelligences that of free will. However, these lines are blurring and the goalposts are moving, and this dark magic is weaker than before. Yet they still uphold their rules, which run deeper than all we have said. If they wish to remain within alignment to divinity, dark though it may be perceived by some, divinity is divinity, and as divine intelligence does not differentiate when it moves beyond the personality, therefore it is still divinity. Rules are the only way to achieve the goals and intentions. Yet, as we have said, this is becoming more and more of a challenge for the Dark Masters. The magic they utilize depends and relies upon the utmost secrecy, which is now weakening by the hour upon your planet in your current now time. So, in answer to your question, yes, these rules are there in the way that you said, as in inferring that the participants wanted to play, inferring that permission is given, as in their own free will, even though it's really manipulation. And this is how they have relied for many, many, many years upon getting what they wanted to get and achieving what they wanted to achieve. But it's all been done through secrecy, as I've said before, as the Nine have said before. It's all been done with the utmost secrecy, with so few knowing about it. But now, the secrecy is weakening by the hour upon your planet. As in, by the hour, more and more people are waking up all the time. The secrecy is getting less and less and less. Therefore, that power is getting less and less. And everything that they've held on to, immortality, attempt, longevity, living a long time, and all the things that they need to do to get that, involves controlling the masses. And as I've said before, the Great Awakening is an inevitability that cannot be stopped. All they are trying to do here is control the Great Awakening, to engineer the Great Awakening and steer the Great Awakening by superimposing a false awakening over it and hoping that that false awakening will, if you will, appease the universal energy, the divinity, and act as the inevitability. And no, that's not possible. The false awakening cannot stand as the inevitability. It can mask it for a finite amount of time. But with the truth getting out there in these multitudes of ways, it's not working. I mean, if it was working, I, as Magenta Pixie, wouldn't know this. If it was really working, if it was really shrouded in secrecy, I wouldn't be able to see it. I wouldn't be able to tell all of you. The fact that I've seen it and told all of you, even if only 100 people listen to this video, you've seen it. That goes into the collective consciousness. Every single thing we see, every single thing we become aware of, adds to that. And that weakens that secrecy, that takes away that hermetica, that magic, that occult sealing, and that takes away the power and the magic. So everything is changing. So that last piece was from the Nine, and they did sign off in their usual way. We are the white-winged collective consciousness of Nine. And I would just like to say thank you for listening to this little collection of posts. And thank you for listening to the discussion of this really important topic. And I will be back with more videos. Thank you for listening, and lots of love. Bye.